Thank you, Gopi. So everyone, welcome aboard. We're excited to have you. My name is David Blair, as I mentioned. The first thing we're going to do is go around the horn and make sure that we introduce ourselves so that you understand kind of our backgrounds and how we have a point of view on kind of impact. And what I would say is this panel isn't just about making impact during uncertain times, but I think more generally, I think people want to have meaning in their work, and so having impact is a way to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Shilpa to introduce herself, and then Elaine, and then I'll come back to myself.
Sounds good. Thanks, David. I'm Shilpa. I work at Box as a chief architect, and I lead an awesome, team of architects. Throughout my career, I've switched back and forth between management, leadership role and pure technical leadership role. And in an interesting way, it has helped me be better in both the roles. So whenever I switch back and forth, I feel like I learned a lot more perspective, and somehow it has helped me be better than before.
Awesome, thank you. Elaine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Elaine Jill. I recently joined Change.org, which is many of you know, the world's largest social change platform. We have over 300 million users in 196 countries. As the technical leader in the company, I lead a global engineering team to drive Change.org to the forefront of responsible AI, to elevate our platform capability to reach a much larger audience, and it's most importantly to engage repeat users who can really lead change and have the impact for their causes. So I'm super excited joining Shilpa and David here, share our thoughts on how we can do to have more impact in this challenging time.
Awesome, thank you. So maybe I'll just round out, and I think you'll see this throughout the panel. I'll probably make some commentary after our esteemed panelists talk, but maybe just a little bit about the organization I work for. I work for Andela. What we do is we find and place and train engineers on the continent of Africa, and then place them with companies around the world, mostly in North America, really solving the problem around finding great engineers and finding them in a new place. And it's a very mission-driven company. We think about impact. We are helping to bring opportunity, bring career growth, salary growth, growing a network for a workforce that is often overlooked or maybe never even considered in the technology scene, and that is Technologist in Africa. And as we expand across the globe, we'll do more of that. But we very much want to build a healthy business so that we can have a healthy impact in the world. So we are going to talk about impact. So hopefully you have an understanding of our backgrounds a little bit, the organizations we work for. And I think it really starts with just level setting. I think it's really important that we define impact, So Shilpa, maybe to start, what does impact mean to you? Because we can all answer this question in our own frame, our own context. I think it's important that we have an understanding of how you're thinking about impact.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Impact does have like the subjective, tone to it. So impact to me is about making a difference or moving the needle forward. It could be very subtle, it could be very minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but something along the line, and it could be in any area. It could be, technology oriented, like solving, distributed system problems, or it could be business-oriented digital transformation. It could be mindset change. It could be cultural shift. It could be diversity and inclusion, and it could also be how we work better, and team enablement and team empowerment. So many different areas. And if I can be myself and utilize my skills and experience, and leverage a team to make that change even better. So that's like largely the definition of impact to me.
Nice.
And my own assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, impact is a very personal thing. Elaine, how do you think about impact, and how would you define it in your words?
Yeah, I agree with Shilpa wholeheartedly. Every one of us can define impact based on our own circle, whether or not this is as big as a society, our own family, or our immediate team. For me, in this stage of my career, I focus on influence that I can have for the society in the tech industry. And on the other hand, I also want to put more time and focus on coaching and mentoring that I can provide my team and the community that I personally engaged with in this. Usually, I like to spend a lot of my free time for the immigrants community and women in tech community. So that's on my current stage. But I agree that you have to define and find your niche and figure out what is the right topic for you to put your focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there is sort of this idea that you can think about it as an individual having an impact and growing your influence. You can think about your team and how's your team executing well or growing impact, or maybe experimenting in new ways at your company that shows some leadership and growing influence because you've learned something new. Like for instance, at Andela, we experimented with this idea of an integrated Scrum team. Try to pull more people from across the business into our Scrum methodology and not just be engineering, product, and design. And so we really grew influence, and there was a team that sort of experimented with it and grew it. And so that was sort of a team change, making some impact. And then of course there's the org level, and that's sort of the type of organization you want to work for or with or volunteer for or do outside of work. And so thank you for sharing your points of view. I think as we move through sort of some content we want to cover today, I think a lot of our audience are probably individual contributors, not just leaders who sort of might have a much easier time to influence change. You know, if you lead a team, you can drive a best practice, or you can do something to influence a lot of people at one time. But if you, as an individual, how do you think about making an impact within your own org, and maybe doing more from an impact point of view? And so Shilpa, maybe if you could kick us off on this of what individual contributors might want to think about, and then we'll turn it over to you, Elaine.
Sure. Yeah, so I agree that, like, you know, at a very micro level, the impact, you know, within the organization to set you up for, like, you know, even broader level of impact. So yeah, I mean, from my own experience, you know, stretch yourself, like, you know, get out of the comfort zone and taking ownership at whatever you do, you know, and at the same time being attuned to, like, the organizational needs and the organization goals and objectives and the headwinds and the problem space. Because if you can just for, like, harmoniously making a change, right, that to me is very impactful in its own way. And if you can identify and match the problems that you are solving in your domain and map that to similar problems in other domains, then there's an opportunity to solve it in a way that it's high leverage, right? So it's kind of like building, leveraging what you're really good at, and then, like, going across the domain, and, you know, and again, by being, you know, very close to the organizational needs and constraints and, you know, the problem space, and also, like, shaping the culture for inclusion, including yourself along the way, is pretty solid, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot there to unpack, but maybe before we do that, maybe Elaine, how would you think about individuals sort of exercising and growing impact?
You know, when I think about the impact in a team and organization, I think the most efficient way, you know, speaking from an engineering point of view, is how can we align our personal career development goals and our own expertise with your own team and organizational objective. And that's very important. In 2019, Harvard Business School did a study over like 4,500 companies, trying to understand how company can survive the recession and thrive after. So some of the most interesting finding I want to share here is that I think it's very easy for us to understand. It's extremely relevant right now. Basically, a company who can actually survive a recession and uncertain time and thrive after, focus on, and they do really well in 4 areas: cash flow, basically be fiscal responsible, decision making, workforce management, and digital transformation. Think about this: every one of these 4 areas fit into the core of our engineering special, strengths, right? How can we automate process and features to cut costs, and how can we invest, and companies need to invest more in technology? How can we decentralize our workforce and make decision making, also decentralized? These are all areas that we can contribute, and the more that you can think about ideas and can fall into one of these 4 areas, and the bigger impact that you can do. All these just require companies in general need to be way more flexible and ready to adjust, right? What that means for us individuals, especially engineers, just to remain flexible and ready to adapt and adjust. And so I highly recommend everybody can think about, and every one of us can think about things we can do, no matter small project or bigger project. As ICs, you can come up with ideas and help in every one of this area. And then your impact, you will find out that was way beyond what you think will be just your immediate teams, because the companies, every company will need to focus on one of the 4 areas, or 4 of them. So I highly recommend you think about from that angle.
Yeah, and maybe if I could just make a comment on the idea of being flexible as an individual. I've worked with lots of different stage companies, large multinationals, public, startups, been acquired. I spent a bunch of time with Techstars before I came to Andela. And, I remember working with an engineer at a startup. He was brand new and early in his career. And the biggest piece of advice I gave him was say yes. I was asking him to do the end of sprint demo. He's like, I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? I don't know anything about the top. I'm like, well, learn it. Get out in front of your team. And that idea of presenting to the entire team at the end of the sprint really grew his confidence, but also he started to be viewed as a leader, and his impact started to grow, and people started to come to him for things. And so it's just a small little tidbit of when people make requests of you, stepping up and saying yes to those things can often lead to greater impact. And so it's definitely someone early in their career I always recommend, be the first in line. Okay, we are gonna now start to, so we've been thinking about the individual. How about as we think about maybe an engineer or a technical person, how can they think about impact maybe outside of their current role or their team? And is there ways that you think about how to grow your contribution outside of your current role, right? And increase your influence, increase your ability to make an impact, not just within the role that you are providing for the company. Elaine, how would you think about sort of answering that idea of growing contribution outside of your current role?
I think the first thing that I think about this is got to change our own viewpoint, right? Look at things, look at the problems, and look at the objective from a different angle, from different group cross-functional teams from different angle, and gain a much better understanding of the business challenge, your user challenges, and then have a better understanding of the company goals, and internalize it. That's very important. Don't just always think about from engineering point of view. Think about from your product manager, your product owners, or your support teams, your business folks. So ask the what if question, and this is one thing that I always encourage my team to think about. What if, think about from an angle. What would I do if, you think about if you were them, you have their jobs, what would you do? And think about that. Then it makes the conversation much easier when you have the conversation with cross-functional teams, and collectively you come up much better solutions for whenever your team objective, the company objective or problem that you're trying to solve. And your influence, your impact will be much more profound.
Yeah, definitely. Shilpa, I'm sure you have something to add to this, having done a lot of things in your career. How would you help to augment some advice around growing contribution outside your current role as an individual?
I echo, Elaine's, thought on this as well. It's about, it's about taking the risk, right? Exposing yourself that, yes, this interests me. And, like seeking a mentor or even a helping hand, and be ready to, like, invest your own personal time in this. Like if you want to switch, if you want to impact like a different role and so on. And the crucial thing here is to figure out how are you gonna do this transition, this dual role thing, right? Because it's never like a, never like an easy switch, right? So if you enable your team members to grow into and learn and grow into your current role, then that will give you the latitude to, kind of learn and grow into the areas that you're passionate about, right? And also, like, at the same time, always set a timeline and a goal for yourself. Like, and if that the self-assessment bar is higher, then it's a better outcome. And I can tell you, like, from my own experience, I was a backend engineer for a very long time, but when I started doing client-side development, I became a better backend developer because I understood the constraints. I understood, like, the whole, optimization and so on. So like Elaine was saying, there are so many aspects that go into building systems and building, businesses. It's always good to be interested in that, and it's always good to, change the perspective and learn a different perspective. And if you set a timeline and a goal, you can always decide that, yes, this is great and I want to make a permanent switch, and I've made sure that, my current role is taken care of. I mentored somebody, I invested in somebody to take on that, and now I'm going to go and do something else. So along that lines is what has what I've seen work.
Nice. I think there's some valuable advice in there. As we progress here, we've been talking a little bit about the individual and the frame of the individual, and we've also been thinking about, okay, now how do I get outside my role and organization? Maybe we can even expand a little bit further. If we want to think about impact, maybe outside of the organization, and you can define organization as maybe your department or your business unit, but maybe something a little bit more broad or more holistic. Is there something that you would recommend around creating impact around or outside of an organization, however you want to define it? It could be like outside your company. So maybe I'll ask Elaine to maybe start with this question. Are there things that you've done in your career or advice that you would have for people about growing your influence and impact outside of an organization?
Sure. I would highly recommend people to volunteer. Volunteer in subject matter that you are personally passionate about. Right? We all have very limited time. We have different priorities, family, work, personal hobbies. So put something that you're personally passionate about, and then you also can contribute to. For me, I have been two areas I mentioned that I'm personally very much care about. One is immigrants. As an immigrant myself, I have been volunteering with this organization for over 10 years now. They focus on helping foreign trained professionals come to this country who unfortunately cannot find relevant jobs, and they can utilize the skill sets for various reasons. So that's something that I can definitely understand and can help out, right? And the other area for me is we're all talking about, it's about women in tech, and we're all talking about these days about how can we recruit and build a diverse team. But you think about this, the number one problem for us is actually we need to encourage more students, young girls interested in STEM, and students participate in STEM programs in college, right? Without that top of the funnel, we will always have to talk about, struggling to find more female engineers. So that is the area that I'm passionate about, and also trying to spend my time to encourage students and kids get into STEM programs. So find something you're passionate about and start with something small. You could mentoring a local schools, mentoring junior engineers. You can also spend time, depending on what your passion is, helping out the upcoming election. You can even start a petition in change.org. Right? Just so many things you can do, but start something that you're passionate about.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, I just want to encourage people to ask some questions. We're starting to see some come in. So great job, audience. Thank you for that. So maybe we round out the conversation around impact outside your organization. Shilpa, how would you think about it? Are there things that you've done to grow impact that is not necessarily like in your 9-to-5 job or something else that you might think about?
So yeah, what Elaine said, volunteering, I think that's a really, really great way for cross-organizational impact, like discovering the platform. And again, these things are not gonna come to you. Like, put yourself out there and seek for these kind of, cross-organizational, platforms or groups and forums and so on. And volunteering is a great way. The kind of it's like this opening discovery, right? You go in a forum and you hear a lot of different things, and then you learn about a lot of different things, and you kind of understand, like, okay, other people are also solving similar problems, right? And if you can evaluate, like, the contributions that worked and was impactful within this, within the current organization, and it has some applicability or some sort of like match, and it is potentially beneficial for other organization, it's good to kind of, seek out like the leaders from that organization and kind of exchange, share story and learn from each other, like, for example, as we're doing this whole public cloud migration thing, we're talking to other companies who've done similar kind of, migrations, and like, what was their learning, so we don't make the same, make the same mistakes again, and those kind of things. So yeah, it's opening various avenues of discovery and and learning, and yeah, volunteering, mentorship, being a mentor, seeking a mentor is another way of discovering similar challenges and similar problems that you're passionate about.
Yeah, so great stuff. I mean, I think, Elaine, the idea of mentoring and volunteering, super valuable. It's rewarding for the person doing it just as much as it is for the receiver of it. And Shilpa, I think there's definitely a lesson there about get outside the four walls of your office. Talk to other people who have walked the mile that you're about to walk, and you will start to understand some things. Maybe if I could just share a few things from my perspective. I think I would concur with the mentoring, and as I said, it's just as rewarding, and you actually realize that you actually have a lot to give, and sometimes you don't always see it in your day-to-day, so it can be useful just from putting some wind in your own sails. I think there's also opportunities with, us as technologists, hackathons. A number of people on my team have gotten involved in some COVID hackathons. We're working on a hackathon just internally in our company about like, what better tools can we create for working remote? And, people are stepping up and people are like showcasing their talents, and engineers and technologists are competitive, and it's great to see. And there's really some innovation happening, and you're seeing people have a real impact because some of those things are becoming product, if you will. I think the last thing is there's so many organizations you can be a part of. I mean, I live and work in Africa, and the number of organizations you could participate, whether it's helping collect data on refugees and having a mobile app to do that, whether it's bringing hardware to people who just don't have access to it, whether it's bringing power and light and clean water. There's so many technology solves that are like doing it, and there's something there for everyone. There's a passion for it. There's a number of organizations that are just trying to bring training and empower people through learning technology. So I would just encourage you to get creative, and that you can find an outlet if there's something there. And again, the rewards are very high when you start to participate in those types of things. Okay, so we have talked for a while. We have some questions here. Clearly, we're looking at what's been upvoted here. So I'm going to start there. Shilpa, there's a question here about switching from engineering to management, maybe back and forth. When do you know it's time to switch? And, you know, Elaine, if you want to comment as well, I'm sure you have some wisdom to share with people. But Shilpa, feel free to maybe share your lessons.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's always been, you know, like set yourself a goal, no matter what role you take, you know, whether management track or IC track or different domains, you know, always set a goal for yourself. Like, this is where we are at, and this is the North Star, and this is like the milestone, right? And depending on, you know, your own self-assessment, and of course, you know, the feedback that you get from whatever changes that you're making, and you've met those goals, and if you get to a comfortable point, right, like, okay, this is, you know, this is working, this is going, there's a rhythm, you know, things are going well. When you get to the comfort point, that is when you kind of decide that, okay, what is like, it's time for some sort of change, right? You have kind of, you know, figured out the whole transformation, and you're making good progress on the transformation that you set out to do. You've built the next line of succession. You always have to do that, no matter management or IC track. And it's always good for the person making the change, and for the domain where the change, leadership change is happening, because it's good to bring in new people, and it's good to, at every stage, a different person to take it to the next stage. So usually that is my criteria. Like, okay, I've kind of met the target that I wanted to. Now it's time to put myself in an uncomfortable situation again, and bring in other people to take what, you know, what I did to the next level. And every party, I feel, benefits. So that's usually my strategy in terms of switch. And specifically on the you know, IC versus the management, I always have a hard time, like, decoupling, you know, technical from the management. So I feel like in a management track, okay, I'm falling behind, like, all these, you know, technology kind of thing. So maybe I should kind of, you know, switch my gear and learn in this area, and then kind of, you know, switch back again. So this is my intention. I intend to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I see that the ticker is ticking down on us, and there's some other questions. So I'm going to combine. Elaine, if you want to elaborate on anything around when to know to move into management or do some career switching, please do. But I think the second question that's been upvoted relates to you as well, and that I think you would have a point of view. How did you discover areas of impact that you were passionate about? Was it an organic process?
I do want to quickly comment on
if you could help answer that.
Because it's unusual for me. I spent 5 years going back and forth to IC track and management track. So my point here is, I think people, if you know exactly what you want to do, it's much easier. But if you don't, it's absolutely okay to just give a try. You know, I actually switched back and forth multiple times, and I enjoy every part of that. And I truly understand what I'm looking for, what I want, what kind of impact I want. And then by the time I finally make up my mind, I know exactly what the career path for me. So don't worry about making the wrong decision. It's the journey. In terms of how I find my passion, partly for me is my personal experience, being an immigrant, and naturally I want to help out immigrants. For the woman in tech, again, it's also personal experience, and I've been through and I see how challenges and go through, being a woman to climb the corporate ladder in the tech field. The other thing is just when I'm meeting with other like-minded women in tech, and when we have the discussion, we learn the challenges that we share, and just realize what I can contribute back, right? What can we do? I mean, if I have challenges to find the female candidates and have challenge to keep female engineers as they progress in career, the life change, have kids and become a full-time mom. So it make me think about what are the things we can do, and that's usually how I get me into these activities. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we ran out of time, unfortunately. What I would say, there's still some questions in the QA. Seek us out on LinkedIn or GitHub, and if you want to connect, please do. We want to contribute to the technical community. That's why we're part of this panel with Elevate and Plato. So please seek us out. We're happy to share our lessons learned.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.